one of the most important tools that I feel like I keep coming back to that I've heard you talk to is that window before falling asleep and how that imprints our subconscious. So I'd love for you to share a bit about that, the importance of it and how to leverage it wisely.
Yeah, so there's actually two transitional states called hypnagogic and hypnopompic. And one is when you're transitioning from being awake to asleep, and the other is when you're transitioning from being asleep to awake. And it's interesting because I actually feel like you've just made me realize I put more focus on the one in the morning because that's when I do my breathing and my gratitude practice as I'm starting to wake up. With the falling asleep one, that's a reason to place your vision board or action board next to your bed, because then that's what you're seeing last thing at night, and it's reminding you of what your, desires are, and reinforcing that into your subconscious so that when you wake up the next day, you're more likely to notice things that can, help you to receive opportunities to make those things come true. I didn't do as much research into dreaming as I would have liked to. Actually, there was just, I sort of had to choose.
Yeah.
I couldn't go down every single rabbit hole that I wanted to, but I had a really interesting conversation with a Tibetan doctor and philosopher about dark retreats and lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming is when you become aware during the dream and you can actually influence what happens in the dream. And it's, there's a lot of overlap with what I would call vivid dreaming, which is just where it feels very real. And of course, for some people, not so much for me, but for some people, their lost loved ones can appear in dreams, and that can feel very real, and it can feel like having an experience with them. So what the Tibetan philosopher said that was really interesting is that when you go to bed at night and you fall asleep, you're in another world. Your dreams are another world. They're not of this world. And so in a way, it's like a mini death every night. And that basically, when you're dreaming, you are in another dimension. And that's interesting in and of itself. And I'm not a dream expert. Maybe my next book will be on dreams. I don't know. But what he said about the dark retreats are that they're the closest similar experience that humans can have to near-death experiences. Because obviously you and I can't choose to have a near-death experience, but we can choose to do a dark retreat. And the dark retreats are also seen as like a form of death and rebirth. And it's super fascinating what happens in the dark, because you're in darkness continually. And I think monks do this for 7 times 7 days. But I think if you go on a retreat, of course, it can just be a few hours or a weekend, but it's meant to be 7 days and 7 nights. So basically, because of the impact of darkness on our brains, we release a lot of the hormone melatonin that helps us fall asleep. And so people are sleeping a lot at first, and they're falling asleep in darkness and waking up in darkness. And then eventually you start to see light in the darkness. So the walls kind of glimmer with some light, and then it could look like shooting stars or just like flashes of light. And then, this is like intense, but what happens is similar to near-death experiences. People will see animals, they'll see people, they'll see deities in the form of light in this completely pitch black room. And, it's an altered state of consciousness that creates some kind of spiritual experience. We should actually talk about other altered states of consciousness as well, so other ways of achieving that. And this relates to ancient wisdom again, because a lot of ancient civilizations would actually bury people for days, and then these people would emerge as the seers and the mystics of those communities. So yeah, a lot of fascinating stuff there that I haven't delved into as much as I would like, but I will.